Hello, everybody. Good evening. The program. Thank you all for your patience and thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Janae Lewis. I am the operations coordinator for Congresswoman Cori Bush. We are heartened to see so many community members join us tonight. When we learned of the heartbreaking loss of Riverview student Spirit Butler due to bullying, we knew we needed to act swiftly to address this issue. We wanted to use this town hall as an opportunity to provide space for students, school administrators, and the community at large to speak openly about ways our office can support. While we have been organizing this town hall for months, after Monday's tragic events, we realized we needed to provide a space for the First District to discuss school safety and youth violence as a whole. Last week, we met with students throughout the district for our Congress in Your Classroom initiative. This program allows students to draft a piece of legislation that will be filed in the House of Representatives. Our students chose the topic of youth violence prevention. And during the meeting, the Congresswoman asked if students felt safe in their schools. Some students admitted that they did not. Collectively, the students engaged with one another and discussed several tangible ways they believe administrators and elected officials could address safety concerns at their schools. Exactly 1 week later, our city would be the next to experience a school shooting. Our hearts go out to every single person affected by this tragedy. We want the community to know that our office is here in any way to support. With that being said, we want to use this moment as an opportunity to continue amplifying the voices of students while encouraging everyone in the community to lean in and listen. And don't just listen, but take action. The Congresswoman is very passionate about ensuring that students, administrators, and all staff throughout Missouri's First District feel safe at school. Our office is committed to providing resources and continues to stand in solidarity with everyone who is hurting at this time. Tonight, we want to ensure that everyone in the room feels safe and supported. We are not here to yell, lay blame, or disrespect our panelists, community members, and neighbors. We are coming together in love for our babies. Tonight is about finding solutions for our children. Tonight is about getting resources for our families. If you have other issues to discuss that do not pertain to school safety, we ask that you please call our office tomorrow. Out of respect for an entire community that is grieving tonight, if you attempt to disrupt this town hall, you will be respectfully escorted out. If at any time tonight you feel uncomfortable or need support, there are support services located outside of these doors ready to assist you. With the amount of questions we have received, there simply is not enough time tonight to address everyone. But if your question was not asked tonight, our office will follow up with you in the next week. We will also be emailing a comprehensive list of resource providers in the First District. I now have the honor of introducing a woman that is very special, not only in our office, but in the community. This is a woman I truly look up to. She is a mother, pastor, nurse, activist, and author. She is beautiful inside and out, and is definitely the change we all wish to see in the world. Please welcome the Honorable Dr. Congresswoman Cori Bush.
appreciate that. You know, you all know you can't start me off like that. You know, I will drop tears.
I love you, Cori Bush. I love you, Cori Bush.
I love you too. I love you. That's why we're here. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here. We have a lot to discuss and a lot to get through. And we want to, like Jamaal said, we want to try to get through as much as we can because we want folks to feel heard. And we know folks have questions. Other folks are going to ask your question. So thank you, Jamaal, and hello, everyone. So I'd like to first take the time to acknowledge a few folks who are with us tonight. I would like to start with first the mother of Alexandria Bell. We stand with you as a community. If you want to be acknowledged, you can stand. If not, you can sit there. We're going to love on you in this space. There's Mom over there. We support you. We want to wrap our arms around you. And there are plenty of resources in this room of folks that are willing to help you and connect with you tonight. Yes. That's what this is for. Yes. That's what this is for. And words can't express our deepest condolences. And as we said, we say, you know, enough with the thoughts and prayers. I can't say prayer don't work, because prayer does work. So we praying, but we gonna pray with our feet, and we gonna pray with our hands, and we gonna pray with our mouths for your family and for all of those that were affected. First, I need to shout out and thank my staff. All of my staff, would you wave? You all have worked so hard to put this town hall together while simultaneously doing everything that needs to be done to show up for our community. I appreciate you. Staff was out there as soon as the shooting happened. Was out at the school, holding students, crying with community members. This is the staff. This is your team. I would also like to thank all of the local and state elected officials who are represented here tonight. If you are an elected official or an office representative, could you please stand? Your presence here tonight shows us not only that you care about St. Louis, but that you are committed to using your elected power to bring change. So thank you for being here tonight. And for those that I have the names, I'm gonna call some names. And the reason why I'm gonna call some names, I know it'll prolong the time a little bit, but the thing is this, when we bring resources to the table, you need to know who those folks are that have the resources. It's not great, it's not good enough to bring folks in here and say there are resources in the room, and then folks don't know who those folks are. So if you're an elected official and I don't call your name, you can pass your name up and I'll say it again, I'll say it a little later. We have Adam Lane, St. Louis City Treasurer. We have Heather Taylor, who's our Deputy Director of Public Safety. If I call you, just stand so people can see you. Angela Mosley, who is our Missouri State Senator. Carla May, Missouri State Senator. Earl Bush, City of Northwoods Alderman Ward 2. Dorothy North, City of Northwoods Alderwoman Ward 4. Sharon Pace, City of Northwoods Mayor. Back there. Desiree Whitlock, Hazelwood School Board of Education. Doug Clemens, Missouri House of Representatives, back there. Brock Timmons, the Regional Communications Liaison for Governor Parson. So there's a representative from the governor's office. Dr. Madi Davis, St. Louis City Director of Health. And Shameen Clark Hubbard, St. Louis Alderwoman Ward 26. And we also have Ted Hoskins, City of Berkeley. And I've seen a few other folks back there. We have Brian Jackson in the back. You gonna stand up? And Peter Meredith, State Representative. Okay, if we have any more, you can flag me down. Okay, I would also like to give a special shout out to my good friend from New York City, who came all the way to St. Louis to show his support. This is Congressman Jamaal Bowman. So Congressman Bowman, first of all, he reached out because he heard about what happened and he wanted to support St. Louis. That's first. He also is the vice chair of the House Committee on Education and Labor and has been an ally and a partner of mine to fight to rid gun violence in our schools. So thank you for being here, Congressman. Next, I would like to thank our local clergy and community faith leaders who are here with us tonight. If you are clergy or a faith leader, please stand. Stay standing. Please stay standing. Because I won't have your name. Continue to stand. Look around the room. See who the clergy, see who they are. This is interfaith. If you need to speak with someone from the clergy, remember those faces. They are in the room tonight. In times of darkness, when we often need faith the most, thank you for lending your support and your guidance. Typically, anytime that I am blessed you all with the opportunity to speak in front of my community, I always make sure to end by reminding people, you all know that your Congresswoman loves you. But this week, instead of ending my speech, ending this moment with that, I'm gonna start off by reminding you that your Congresswoman loves you. In fact, love is the reason why we are all here today. And no, it's not, oh, that's fluffy and it doesn't really mean anything. Actually, it does. It is the reason why we are all hurting right now. And it is also why what we keep going through these dark times is also what sustains us. So in this spirit of eternal love, I would like for everyone to join me in a moment of silence for our dear Alexandria Bell, and for Miss Jean Kutzka, for all the students who were injured, and the entire Central Visual and Performing Arts High School and Collegiate School of Medicine and Biosciences community. Thank you. Our community has witnessed an act of violence that no neighbor, no parent, no child should ever have to experience. Families in our community are feeling a kind of pain that no family should ever have to feel. Children in our community are left with trauma that no child should ever have to carry. I would once again like to thank our first responders, our teachers, our faculty, those who responded swiftly to the situation on Monday, and those who helped get folks to safety. Their bravery, your bravery matters. Your bravery saved lives. And if we have any of those folks in this room, we invite you to stand. Step up here if you want to, you don't have to. Heroes in our community, heroes from our community. You don't know you're about to be a hero when you walk into that moment that makes you a hero. And we know that you didn't do it to be a hero, that you didn't set out for that, but we honor you, the lives that you saved, the legacy that you saved, because when you save one, you save families, you save generations, you save communities. You all, you did that work. We honor you. Can we stand and honor them? Now, I would like to ask anyone who is a teacher, a school administrator, or faculty, custodial worker in a school, cafeteria worker in a school, the librarian. If you are one of those people, if you work in any area of our school system, would you please stand? We live in a reality. First, let me just say, each of you have made a commitment to teach and to love and to protect. And we honor you for that. Thank you for being the ones who keep our children safe, our students safe. Thank you for loving on our loved ones when we are not there. We live in this reality where so much, too much is asked of all of you. Too much is asked of you, and not enough is given in return. Yes. But know that all of us here, we appreciate you and we thank you for joining us today for this fight, in this fight for a better reality. And lastly, I ask that any student that is here in this room, if you feel comfortable, if you want to stand, you can stand. If you are a student. These are our youth. This is our commitment. This is where our commitment is. Our commitment is to you. Our commitment is to how you thrive. Our commitment is to making sure that what you have, that everything that you have, actually, let's start with that you live a dignified life, that you prosper, and that's in our hands, and then the baton passes to you, but we gotta equip you for that baton. So that's what we are here to do. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for being here, and thank you for standing. I want to say to each of you that I am sorry that we live in a reality of bulletproof backpacks and constant active shooter drills. It is not fair, it is not right, but thank you for choosing to be here and choosing to fight in a new reality. Monday was truly a day that we hope, we pray never comes. What happened is unconscionable, it's unacceptable, it's unimaginable, but actually it's not so unimaginable. It should be, but it's not. Our country, our society is undergoing a gun violence epidemic. We have already broken the record, you all, for the highest number of school shootings this year. And there are still months left in 2022. Right now, gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teens. In Missouri, we have the 4th highest death rate from firearms per capita. When will enough be enough? It is time to end this violent cycle. It is time for action. It is time for change. I know we've been all working on this for such a long time, but what now? That's why I'm fighting relentlessly in Congress to introduce and advance gun reform policies that both protect and address the needs of our communities. Now, this past June, we know Congress did pass the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act earlier this year, which helped to close the dating partner loophole, and it invested millions in community violence intervention programs. This is a great step, it's an important step, but it's only the beginning. We need so much more. We need gun reform policies that are rooted in public health solutions, because after all, this is a public health crisis. We need background checks on every single gun sale, every single gun transfer. We need to enact red flag laws. We need to ban assault weapons. We need to save lives, and that's what each one of these actions individually will do. Because gun violence, it is preventable. School shootings, they are preventable. We must be the ones willing to act. We must be willing to lead with peace. Lead with peace and lead with love. In fact, it is the love for my community, my love for all of y'all, that pushes me and allows me to be the best advocate that I can be here in St. Louis and in Congress for you and for your children. It is why I introduced the Helping Families Heal Act, along with Leslie McSpadden, Michael Brown's mother, in order to fund mental health resources for families, for communities, and students who have been traumatized by violence. It is why I introduced the People's Response Act, which would adopt a new approach to public safety that's rooted in public health. It's why just last month, Congressman Bowman and we sent a letter to the Department of Human Services. We sent this letter to the Department of Justice and to the Department of Education, asking them to conduct a review of gun violence prevention strategies in schools and establish a comprehensive plan to meet the holistic educational, health, and safety needs of our nation's students. And isn't it love that brings us all together to come and want to offer resources, but also show love to those in our community who are hurting? We are here because we love our community. We know St. Louis can be better, and we are the ones to make that happen. So thank you all for being here. So now we're going to open up our first panel. You're going to hear from two panels. One with our students and one with our school administrators, who will answer students that you all, the audience, have submitted, whether it be online or in person here today. Of course, again, I want to gently remind folks that we only have 2 hours here tonight. We know we're going to have plenty of questions. We'll have enough questions to last us all night, but we can't be here all night. So we'll get to as many as we can, but whatever we cannot get to, my office will respond to those questions. We will follow up with you during the coming weeks. Your questions will not go unanswered. I also want to remind everyone that the main focus of tonight's town hall is to discuss the urgent crisis of school safety and all that is encompassed in the need to achieve that. While I recognize that there are plenty of issues and problems in the world that also need to be addressed and that also are priorities, I feel that it is important, given the rawness of this community's latest tragedy, that tonight we need to focus on this issue. So if there are any other topics that you would like to discuss or unrelated questions you may have, please submit your questions in the back, or you can speak with a member of our staff. Wave your hand, staff. Again, tonight, my focus is on helping our community heal and move forward. Lastly, I want to acknowledge that these difficult conversations, particularly in the wake of such tragic events, it might be difficult to deal with. I want to remind everyone here that it is okay to not be okay, but it is not okay to hold it to yourself.
Come on now.
We have mental health professionals who have graciously lended their time and their skills here tonight, to be here to share with you, who are able to help you today, tonight, at any time, if you are feeling that this is too much. If you need someone to talk to, you want someone to hold on to you during this difficult conversation, they are here. Could I ask that all of our mental health professionals here stand so that folks can see who you are? Please remain standing. Many of them are located in the back of the room. I know you're up here, but many of them are located in the back of the room. so that if you feel like you need someone to talk to during this conversation, you can go around to the back in the whole room, tap them on the shoulder or go wave at them, and then they will meet with you here today during this conversation, but they are also available to meet with you, outside of this conversation. They are here for you. They came to be here with you, for you tonight. Thank you all. And one more thing, organizations. Where are our organizations? We have organizations in the room. I don't have everybody's name, but there are organizations that came ready to help with resources. These folks have tables that are outside the door. They are here with all kinds of resources to be able to help if you are in need on tonight. So they will be out there at those tables right when we are done. My hope for tonight is that this town hall will provide everyone here with a space to reflect on whatever you may need, whatever the grief, the trauma, wherever you are on your healing journey, and to consider where you want to be, where do I want to be, or maybe even where do I need to. So together, with our open minds, being deliberate on how we can move forward, we'll hopefully achieve that tonight for ourselves and for our community. Now, what we're going to do is get started with our students. And are going to have our students to introduce themselves, and not only our students, we have a few other amazing guests that are here to be able to speak with our students, but also that are in the same space. And we felt like this would be a great way to put everyone together. So I am going to open it up for our students to first be able to introduce themselves. Go ahead, start.
Good evening. My name is Michael Simmons, and I am a senior at University City High School.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Russell. I am a senior at Central VPA High School.
Good evening, my name is Abraham Blue. I am a junior from Maple Richmond Heights High School.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Precious Berry. I attend Ripley Gardens High School. I'm a senior.
And now we will start with Chief Sharif. Chief Sharif.
Chief Dennis Sharif, Chief of Northwoods Police Department, 35-year veteran. Former president of National Black Police Association. Sir.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lena Chapman, and I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I am excited to be here tonight to share about mental health.
My name is James Dickerson, and I am the father of a beautiful, joyful, amazing little girl named Spirit Butler, who recently passed away in August. And so, yes, I'm here as Spirit's voice.
This on. Hi, my name is Danielle Spradley. I am the Outreach Director for Congresswoman Bush, and I'm going to be reading your questions to our student panelists and our parents and our police chief. If you have any other questions or comment cards, if we could get those over to the white table to make sure that we get as many questions as we can get asked today. If I call your name, a lot of people did not put their last names, and some questions were left anonymously, but if I call your name and you would like to stand, please stand. Our first question is from Annette. Is there an Annette in the room? Okay. As a student, What efforts are in place to help you report the beginning stages of being bullied? Michael, we'll start with you.
I would say in University City, we are very blessed and very lucky to have such a strong community. And I think that community is the beginning stages of reporting bullying.
What caused my school to get shot up. Bullying is a factor of mental health. However, it is not the reason behind the detriment of that man's mental health. To answer your question, we do have multiple resources and service at our school to be able to go to, like he said, trusted adults. However, those adults are not licensed in the way that we need. We need psychologists available. Now look at us not only as students, but also as mental health patients who have been through trauma and are facing trauma still even.
At Maple Ridge Heights High School, we have counselors, as we mentioned, counselors, principals, to go to in a strong community at our school to help when it comes to the beginning stages of bullying. We also have different programs that are there to support students that feel comfortable to be able to talk to other students about bullying and things like that. So yeah, we do have that.
At Raymond Gardens High School, we have a lot of trusted adults around, such as our social workers, such as our therapists. We just started a new initiative called the Restorative Justice Program that we focusly on mental health trauma, anything that's going on in the child's life that they may need to speak up on, any type of disparities that's going on between different relationships among students. So just being in Raymond Gardens High School, it's a sense of community, sense of connectivity, allowing us to be ourselves, allowing us to not be okay when we're not okay, allowing us to express our feelings to our therapists and those trusted adults.
All right, thank you. Our second question is first for our law enforcement officer, but then I'm also going to ask the students their thoughts on it. As a law enforcement officer, what do you think are necessary actions to curb youth violence in St. Louis?
One of the problems that we have in our community is that our kids are filled with misunderstanding and built up anger. The anger stems from them not being able to vent. When they go to school, you expect for them to get an education, but how can they get an education if they're angry and upset? How can they get an education if a young girl that is home that has been raped and can't voice her opinion and don't have a venting system? How can a young man who doesn't have a father figure in his house vent when he's angry and his mother is angry at him for her father leaving, or vice versa? These kids need help with venting. I suggested when I was at, and I go to Normandy Middle School and high school once a week to talk to the kids, they need an outlet. Before you begin to teach, you first of all need to let them vent. You need to take 20 minutes, 30 minutes to let them vent before they teach. You can't expect them to learn and not be able to vent. If a show of hands on the young people of color, how many times at night you heard gunfire? Show of hands. How many times you heard the police cars go by? How many times did you heard a friend of yours have been shot? And if this continues, it becomes a norm where they feel that they have no feelings, because it continues and continues and perpetuates itself into hatred and misguided information and love for self. Absolutely. We gotta do more than just talking. We can't talk about it, we have to be about it.
Come on, come on.
In order for us to be about it, we can't sit on our hands and hope that somebody else fix the problems of the African American community. We have to fix our problems. And parents have to be parents, and men of color have to be men of color and stand up and work with these kids and stop letting these kids tell you what to do. And you give them some guidance. I'm gonna stop because I go through.
All right, and then we'll go ahead and go down the line and everybody.
I feel that as people of color, we have this stigma on mental health. And I say that in a proportion that we can't speak out how we should speak out. It's that feeling that, it's that feeling that you can't let out what you want to let out because you're scared that people may look at you a certain way. It's that stereotypical thing that people of color try to put on each other and the other races try to put on. Even through health disparities, we have a lot of mental health trauma that as people of color may not get those resources, especially in St. Louis. St. Louis is segregated mentally and socially economically.
You better say it.
We don't have those resources that should help us. So that's my opinion.
Many are looking for solutions, many are looking for change. Those are things that we are looking for. And something I want to mention is that we highly understand that our social workers, police departments are doing what they can to support. But something I always ask myself is, what can we do as teenagers to help and to contribute to our communities? Something that we started at MRH High School was called Leaders of Tomorrow. It's a youth organization to build and strengthen students to effectively impact our community. Next week, we are starting a program. We are starting a next course called Strategy Buildings, talking about mental health, talking about strategies on how to train our students to be aware of signs of bullying and how to constructively handle these situations. Like many have said, less talking and start moving. Less talking and start moving.
As a parent, what do you think are necessary actions to curb youth violence in St. Louis?
So I have like a multi-tiered answer for that question, and because I've been here my whole life. And when I was a teenager, I was a part of the violence issue. And as an adult, I've done everything in my power, from working in the community all through the 90s, shutting down 71 crack houses, and only for another one to pop right back up, to trying to redirect gang members, and then in the 2000s, focusing on my entrepreneurial endeavors, because I realized the only way the best way to help the poor is to not be one. So I had to start focusing on trying to get myself up financially so that the people will listen better. And that actually helps some people. And I'm talking about the people specifically, because we are all people. We all live in houses. The African proverb says that the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. And so we are all people. And we all are having to deal with each other in different ways. I've noticed that there's been a decline in the love ethic that once permeated our culture. I've noticed that there has been a rise in the way that we see each other materialistically, and a decline in the way that we see each other spiritually. The connectedness on the soul level that we once had. You don't even hear the word soul that often. We used to have soul music, and I don't know what the music is right now. It's definitely not soul music, but I noticed that there's like a resurgence of some young people who I really like. I think that I said there's a multi-tiered answer, because it's not just one thing, it's a lot of things. is the clergy who are still, telling the same story every Sunday. And I understand why he does that, because you want to, keep people focused on the salvific benefits of that story. But then there's other stories in the community that other people in the community that don't even connect with that story anymore. How do you make that relevant? There's clergy, there's the police department, who Black people in St. Louis do not trust the police. That's why the people in St. Louis kill each other, because they solve their own problems. There's the police, there's the parents, people like you and me. My daughter Spirit, if you didn't know, was bullied in school. And she, as I said, she was a happy, joyful child. And she was that person that would show up in a room and not know you and say, hey, everybody, let's do this. And she'd take over the room with her happiness and want to spread it to everyone. And in Riverview Garden School District, they didn't respond to her properly when she came up against, mean girl spiritedness and all of those things. And right there in the classroom, the kids were, being recorded it with their phones in the class. And there's, camera evidence from multiple phones from several incidents I've seen now that I didn't know about, of teachers not stopping it from happening because the phones are the kids' property. So I'm saying that there's that, and then there's other things. And my daughter's joy was taken from her. And on August the 8th, she hung herself in her closet with a scarf because she didn't want to go back to school anymore. She was on life support for 17 days until August the 25th, when she crossed over to be with the ancestors. It's, I'm being propped up by the God of the universe, by the ancestors, of whom Spirit is now a part. Here to sit here and say to you that our issues are deep, and they're not political, but they are. They're not religious, but they're kind of related. They're not police, but they're kind of connected. This all really boils down to seeing each other on a soul level and respecting the humanity of our children. So I have 10 children, and I've never, none of them, from the oldest to the youngest, ever heard me say one cuss word. That doesn't make me better than anybody else. But when I was a young man, I decided to experiment with something that I've done for 30 years from now, and I'm sorry to be wrong. I'm gonna stop. But is there a timer over there? I've been a speaker my whole life too, so I love talking. I want to say this real fast, and in my closeout, that I've done an experiment for 30 years. Only because I decided as a young father to respect the humanity of my children. And what I've noticed throughout my life is that not only do the school no longer show respect for the humanity of the children, they show more respect for their numbers, the community at large does. And I think that's where we have a big decline.
So did you want to take, or should we move on to some other? Okay. Lena, as a therapist that works with children, what do you think are necessary actions to curb youth violence in St. Louis?
So, first of all, this is a very difficult conversation. And I think we just need to acknowledge that for a second. People are literally, like, I can feel, right? And so it is a loaded question, but of course I'm going to keep it short. But if you can look around this room, parents, adults, and really think about that, we want to be the solution for our kids, and think about what can I do to support my children? Because we can send them to counseling, but how many of us are actually receiving that mental health support ourselves? And so we can have all those resources in schools and things like that, but until you make it real in your home, instead of just sending the kids and you go, There's family therapy, couples therapy, children play therapy, all different types of resources for our community. And it's time to get this thing started. Tonight needs to be the change. And like someone said, let's not just talk about it, let's be about it. Make those phone calls. Make those phone calls. Connect tonight. There's plenty of therapists in this room. And yes, it's you. It's you too. You need the support too. And if we can get the support as adults, then we can be there and be a support to our children. Now, obviously the schools need, and make sure I have time, obviously the schools need more programs and group therapy. And I would even suggest, honestly, a mandatory class on mental health first aid. So they know what that looks like. They know what the symptoms of depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and all those different mental illnesses look like, and how to support other people and themselves with it. So that's where it starts. So it starts with us as parents in our homes, having those conversations. How was your day? How are you doing? How are you feeling? And being honest with yourself to do the work in your home and be the example.
Under normal circumstances, I would have been honored for an opportunity to sit at the same table as Ms. Cori Bush. However, in the situation, I only have feelings of a calm rage, which is the worst type of anger. Not only because I am a true victim of these tragedies, but because I am the voice that the city needs to make proper improvements for our safety. And the reason that I am featured on this panel is to reinstate my letter that I have forwarded to Ms. Cori Bush, but have yet to receive a response. In my letter, I discussed the faulty gun laws that have cost my comrades their lives and the stigma on bullying, how it profoundly affects our community, and the integrity behind CVPA and the SLPS school district, who are doing the most that they can do to restore our sanctuaries back to what it was. I also want to make a couple points that bullying is a trauma response. Mental health can deteriorate from other sources besides bullying, as I said before. And bullying also implies that it was the children's fault that brought the tragedy onto us Monday. However, let's also point our fingers towards the faulty laws that they have put in place that allowed an 18 to 19-year-old boy to get his hands on an assault rifle. I'll continue to read my will. Dear State Representative Cori Bush, Mayor Tashara Jones, and Public Safety Director Daniel Isom, and other political officials representing St. Louis. My name is Veronica Russell, a senior at CVPA and a prominent leader in both dance and the council. I go by Ronnie back in my home, my school, Central Visual Performing Arts. I am writing this letter to communicate my deepest feelings on a consistent pattern that I used to witness and now have become part of the story. I would also like to come forth and speak politically about issues such as gun laws in Missouri, the continuing school shootings, and backlash that my school faced, and grief from my fallen peers. The severity of our story has even reached the White House, and they are discussing how to retaliate after such a tragedy. However, as citizens of St. Louis ourselves, it is imperative that we act first before the White House. Before I express my reasoning behind my cause, let's eliminate all race theory because this is not a conversation that is a black-white crime or white crime. It is a problem that concerns every single one of us, and there is no room for bias or ethnocentrism. The purpose of bringing this to your attention is to encourage stronger legislation behind those who we give the responsibility to bear arms. The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution states, a well-regulated militia beyond being necessary to the security of free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. If you analyze this statement, it is undeniable that it was solely for the security of one's livelihood under well-regulated and reasonable account. However, after a amount of research, I have find that the gun laws for Missouri are far more lenient Then the Second Amendment, that it allows a 19-year-old boy to get his hands on an assault weapon under no militia, under no life-threatening circumstance. Ooh, I'm so sorry. After reading certain research, I compiled a message that says, these pieces of evidence illustrate the concept that, number one, Missouri desperately values their right to murderous weaponry and cares about those who wield them, even after ruthless casualties. It would be deceiving to yourself to say that this is the proper way to live. While I agree that certain fearsome occurrences do take place and believe that one man should have the liberty to protect what is most important to him, but ask yourselves, does a military-grade weapon used for wars equate to the local crime we face? And what exactly have we gained from the use of assault rifles? The death of innocent children, the death of animals, terrorist attacks, fear, and a higher murder rate, nothing more. Research says that Missouri does not investigate background before making gun sales, nor require a permit or proper training to kill. Because let's be honest, what are these weapons for? If a soul must surround himself with weaponry and the possibility of death to make himself feel stronger, is he truly worthy of having such a responsibility? Due to this ignorance, St. Louis has now become a part of a tragedy that we had never thought we'd face. More importantly, a challenge that has gone on for far too long. Do you think that St. Louis deserves another stain on its history? The consistent pattern of school shootings is utterly infuriating. I began my letter by eliminating the race theory because this topic, Black people like us, have begun to believe this socioeconomic stereotype that there are only white terrorists who would do something so barbaric. Well, now that has come to an end, and that is why it's just so shocking. He was one of our own, not only a Black male, but a CVPA alumni. I am not using this argument of mental health awareness to justify his actions, but I'm trying to make you aware of what we can do to prevent something like this ever happening again. It is beyond race or law. How many children must lay there in their lives? A simple change of hearts, change of words, and change of perspectives can save so many loved ones. Lastly, before a certain backlash engulfs my school in flames, I will speak on behalf of my comrades, Central student body, and the alumni. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we are beyond hurt, beyond shocked, and beyond traumatized. Central was a school for all creators, and here we made it our priority to be heard and be seen in whatever way you express it, and now by one foolish boy, that sanctuary has been taken from us. No words can ever reiterate what the school meant to us before screams filled our classrooms and bullets flew through our halls, before Alexandra and Miss Kushka's lives were stolen and there were bloodstains on our Bobby dance floor. I always said that Central was the school of the future. And this is fact because students have created a bond amongst not only themselves, but the teachers, officers, administrators, and even SLPS representatives alike. As CVPA, we know that everyone has their own battle to fight, from race, LGBTQ+, gender roles, feminism, sexism, and mental awareness. And we make it known that we know your struggle and you to live in your truth. And we have worked hard for that reputation class after class of action to not forget the memories that we have created. Through all the controversy, through social media posts, the controversy in the government artists, rumors and conspiracies, please spare my school and my principal. After approximately 170 years in the business of producing legends, we had never thought that one of our classmates would do something so terrible. It is hard for all of us to accept, though it may be easier to succumb to the negative frequencies of hate and violence. Let us use this pain to remind our hearts of what it feels like to lose. And let us use this weapon to progress forward to a newer, safer, and more loving future before it is too late. Before I conclude this letter, I am addressing Instagram posts that have recently surfaced. It has become a trend to commit senseless acts of violence against St. Louis public schools. We must do our best to prevent another Alexandria Bell, Jean Kushka, and another Orlando Harris.
I wanna say one thing. We will look for your letter. I have it. What'd you say? Okay, so Asia got it today. Okay, so it hasn't gotten to me yet, but she got it today. Okay, so, but thank you for saying, for speaking it here. And let me also say that, in Congress, we have pushed for exactly what you are talking about. I'm not on the state level, I'm on the federal level, and we have pushed for those things about, we passed those things. That our problem is that those things aren't passing in the US Senate. The US Congress has passed those things. We are pushing for those things. We don't believe in 18. We don't believe in 19. We don't believe in 20. But it's not signed into law by the president until both houses pass it. So that's but now on the state level, you got state level folk in here right now that have been fighting, and we don't have enough of them because we don't have enough Democrats. They are fighting. Wave your hand so you can see those are your state reps back there. They are fighting to get this done. So they haven't been, I want you to know, those are the folks, you can talk to them afterwards so you can see exactly what they've been doing. But I want you all to know, and I want the other students in here to know, they have been working hard to try to get this done. We not only are we fighting that, we're fighting folks who take money from the National Rifle Association because they use that money to benefit all the deaths of our students. We're not only fighting that, we're fighting against all of these loopholes in Missouri that allow for not only for people to be able to purchase the guns, but that stop our police officers from being able to do their job, to be able to get, like, we're fighting against so much of it. So just know that those things are happening. I'll personally reach out to Mayor Jones to make sure that she has the letter, because we want to help you. We're not, but we are working hard to make sure those things are done. Our fight right here in this state, though, it is on our state level. We need our Republicans to step up and care about everybody in our community, not just their numbers. And thank you for what you said. And that's how you hold folks accountable. Absolutely. Hold folks accountable. We appreciate your work. Yes, keep using your voice.
So we're gonna have one more answer for Michael, and I thank you for that. And I also want to let you know, we are in no way blaming any students or bullying on what happened on Monday. We had already had this town hall scheduled because we had a lot of bullying issues throughout the district. We are in no way blaming y'all. And I want to let you know that before you leave today. It just happened and we got a lot of questions about bullying because we had already planned this town hall months before. Michael, I'm going to let you do one last answer, and then we have to transition to our administrator panel.
First and foremost, I want to commend Veronica on her strength.
Yeah.
For being here, being a voice for your peers. Thank you for standing up and using your voice. It's truly inspirational. It reminded me of a verse that I heard on Sunday. Like many people, I turn to my faith in times of trouble. And it comes from Esther. And Mordecai said to Esther, "For if you remain silent, relief will come to your people. But you and your family, you and your father's family will perish." I took that as, you can sit silent and think it'll change eventually, but at what cost? How many students are gonna have to lay down their lives if you remain silent? How many teachers are gonna have to lay down their lives if you remain silent? How much hurt is our community gonna have to continue to go through if you remain silent? And Esther, her response was, "Okay, I'll go to the king. And if I perish, I perish." We need more people, and this isn't to answer the question. I believe that leading by example is the best way to lead. That's how we're going to see change. We need more students that are willing to say, if I perish, but I will stand up. More teachers. We need more representatives. We need more elected officials to say, no matter what the consequence is, I'm going to stand up for my people. I'm going to stand up for my community. I'm going to speak out against violence. I'm going to stand up against bullying. No matter the consequence, if I perish, but you will hear my voice every step of the way. That is how we can see a reduction in violence in young people, is by being the example and by elevating that example.
Thank you all so much. I can't thank you enough for all the answers you've given, for giving us your time, for giving us your hearts. We're going to go ahead and transfer to the school administrators panel. And so please get everyone off the stage.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Bush, for allowing me to be here this evening. Thank you, St. Louis, for allowing me into your space. I'm Congressman Jamaal Bowman. I represent New York's 16th district. That includes parts of the Bronx, New York, and parts of Westchester. I'm here as the Vice Chair of the Education and Labor Committee and a member of Congress. But I'm also here first and foremost as a parent. Parent of 3. My oldest is 21, my second oldest is 12, and my youngest is 8, 8-year-old girl. And every time something like this happens in any part of the country, dropping my kids off to school the next day is always one of the hardest things I have to do. Prior to going to Congress, I was in education for 20 years. I was a school teacher, elementary school teacher, a high school guidance counselor and dean of students, and a middle school principal for 10.5 years. So when this happened, when I heard about it, I immediately reached out to Cori to ask if it was okay for me to come down and just be here as a support in any way possible. For school administrators, for teachers, for everyone who works in our schools, and obviously parents, this is our worst nightmare. And it was something that I dreaded every single day as a middle school principal. So I'm just here to be a support in any way that I can and to share some of my background and share a few answers. I think the students pretty much covered what we need to get done. And the bottom line is we just need to get it done. And nothing's been happening for several decades on this issue. And that's completely unacceptable. And for me, I ran for office for one main reason. The year before I decided to run, 34 kids died within my school district. 17 died by suicide. And no one was talking about the trauma that our children were going through. And no one was bringing resources to them, nor their families or their communities. And for too long in Congress, not just in Congress, but elected officials have allowed our kids to be expendable and certain communities to. Well, that's why I ran, and that's why Cori and I and many others in Congress are fighting for what we need and what we deserve as people, period, as human beings first and foremost. So I wanted to introduce our panel of administrators and then ask a few questions for them to answer. We have from the St. Louis Public School District, Alicia Sonia, school board member. Where's Alicia? There you go. How you doing? Matt Davis, school board president. From Normandy School District, we have Dr. Cheryl Harris, assistant superintendent of student services. Cheryl here?
She's out in the audience, I'm her proxy.
Okay, thank you. From the Ferguson School District, Dr. Joseph Davis, superintendent. How you doing, sir? From the Hazelwood School District, Dr. Darren Slade, deputy superintendent. That person here? Oh, my bad. From the Riverview Garden School District, Dr. Joylyn Pruitt Adams, superintendent. And Jamar Porter, assistant director for safety and security. Is there anyone I didn't mention? The young brother right here. Can you introduce yourself, bro?
Good evening, everyone. Don't feel sorry to talk back to me now. Good evening, everyone. All right, my name is Raekwon Strickland. I am a member of the student representative on the Board of Education. I was here because I came to support that beautiful young lady, Miss Veronica Russell, who spoke a good word today and spoke her truth. I am also a senior at Central VPA High School, where a tragedy happened on Monday to Alexandria's family and to Miss Kushka's family. Thank you for sharing such beautiful souls. I can't imagine what you're going through right now, but I have great relationships with both of them, and I am honored to have known them. I'm honored to be a student at Central VPA Performing Arts High School. There is no other school like Central VPA Performing Arts High School. So I'm honored to be here. She asked me to sit up, and you need me, I'm doing it, whatever.
So I'm going to ask a general open-ended question. I would like us to go down the line and respond. We're going to start with Ms. Sonia. Sonia, thank you very much. Ms. Sonia, can you just speak about school safety in general in terms of what you have in place to make sure students remain safe, not just physically safe, but emotionally and psychologically safe? And where are some of the gaps that need to be closed? And maybe how to close a few of those gaps?
The first thing that I would like to do is actually, Veronica, when I heard you talking and you were sitting here and I heard you, I just always want to make sure that I'm telling, our people, but especially our young people, that you don't have to apologize for your rage. That is righteous, that you have every right to be angry, you have every right to speak up. And I just hope that you don't let, I'm sure there's a lot of cameras, there's a lot of media, we never know what they're going to do, but I just want you to know and to hear it from me especially, like, I ran for the Board of Education because I wanted us to be represented and I wanted us to be able to be our full selves, whatever that looks like at the moment. As far as school safety, and I'm very glad that you phrased it as holistic safety, because I think too often when we have conversations about safety, in St. Louis Public Schools is an 80% Black district. And so especially when we talk about what safety looks like for Black children, we tend to only talk about it in terms of policing and surveillance. And so I think it's very important that we start off by understanding that safety is it's not policing, it's not surveillance. It's really a sense of I'm okay here and I have the right to exist here and I'm not under any threat. As far as things that exist in the district, there is, we have a student support offices that, they do everything from assistance to families financially. We have, counselors, we have nurses. We're trying to, get surveys out so that we're able to track when things going on. We have something that we just signed off on recently this year, where if something happens in the family, in the home with the police department, we get notification. Again, not for the straight sake of surveilling or policing the child and the family, but so that we can know that this is what's going on and we can begin to initiate those supports that we have in place. In my opinion, what's missing with safety is, I think the concept of school safety is so unique because it does community safety. Like we can't get them to school, get them in the buildings and keep them safe if the community is not safe. And so I feel like a part of the problem is that sometimes it is like no school district, not even a district like St. Louis Public Schools, can do this by ourselves. And then I also think for us, I wanted to make sure I looked up that 20% of our children are unhoused. And so how are you safe if you do not have housing? And so I think some of the gaps that exist are around holistic conversations around safety and not just policing people and surveillancing people, but putting resources in place and also, stable and affordable and consistent housing.
Some floors, and this is my 29th year in public education. I've been a teacher and principal for many years. I moved here from North Carolina back in my wife, my son, and I, in 2015, after Michael Brown was killed, being a product of a single parent home. My mom, 17 when she had me, those Black women raised me to be the person that I am because of their faith in the Lord Jesus. And I think that, when you talk about school safety and having been in this for so many years, not just as a superintendent, but also as a father, you carry this with you every day. And one of the things that's important to me is to always be in school and be present and be close to the people that we do the work for, and that's our children. And I often find myself in schools trying to figure out where we can do better. And I just want to say to Michael and Veronica and Abraham and Precious, how powerful your words were just a few moments ago, because student voice has to be at the center of the work that we do. To educate children well, education certainly is the business that we're in, but it's not void of the mental support they need in order to show up to learn what they need to learn. So as a teacher, principal, and superintendent, we have a lot of the structures in place. Security, we have a security system. I actually met with our director just yesterday because we have to revamp what we have in place, having learned from what happened just Monday at Central VPA. And I think the piece that is really important are the relationships. Because often when things happen in our schools, we find out about those things because of students, because of the many of our students who have the courage to speak up and say when something is wrong. But we need more stronger relationships. I heard someone say a minute ago, I think it was an African proverb, that a community falls when I forget where it was, but I think it all starts in the home, basically. And I think that's important to have strong community in our, strong homes rather in our community. But I think the other piece, and Veronica raised it and many of the other students raised it a minute ago when they were speaking, and that is we need, and Lena mentioned it, we need mental health in our schools. We need therapists in our schools. And so I take responsibility for where we are. We do have, we work with a couple of agencies throughout St. Louis, but funding, I'm taking a new proposal to the board to add more therapists and add more social workers in our schools, because we have to have that support in front of our students. In larger, more affluent white communities, kids can go to AP Calculus, and then they can go the next period over to a therapist and sit and learn or be with a therapist for almost a class period before going back to class. And our kids have to get access to it when the resources are available. So funding is really important, not just at the state level, but the federal level. I think that the money we got from the stimulus packages that came as a result of COVID helped, but those are finite, they end. So we're going to use those resources to the best of our ability to put more as seed money to put more therapists and social workers in our schools, so children can show up for math and ELA. But I'll end by saying that there's a lot missing. But I think the most important thing that's missing is community, because we separate ourselves by race so often. And the young sister said that this is not about race, this is about humanity. So we got to keep doing this work.
Congresswoman Bush was very right to talk about sort of the things that the state can do and hasn't done. In Missouri, there was a bipartisan bill passed to create a Missouri model for trauma-informed care in schools. It was an urban and rural problem. They recognized that, they passed the bill. It's an excellent model. There's zero money attached to fund implementation, not $1. So they send it to school districts and say, we have a great idea for you. Figure out how to pay for it and do it. There used to be an Institute of School Safety housed at DESE, where they would study school safety. They would come up with best practices. They would try to bring that to school districts to help them implement them. It got moved out of DESE because school safety was deemed to be too political in Jefferson City. You can't talk about guns in Jefferson City or they'll run you out. We started a legislative committee last year, and the number one thing that our superintendent told us that we needed to focus on was trauma. I talked to a school principal that said every single kid that walks in her door is experiencing some kind of trauma because she lives in the city of St. Louis. But we can't go and say it's because of gun violence. About a month ago, our superintendent gave another speech, a heartfelt plea to say that he is sick and tired of having to go to kids' homes and talk about gun violence because they've been shot. And at the end of his speech, he said, you know what? I've been making the same speech for 14 years, and I don't think anybody even cares. I was hopeless today. I was hopeless today because I felt the same way. I didn't think anybody cared. I didn't think anybody was going to listen. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do? We were told that we did everything right in terms of security on Monday. Everything right. How can that be? That everything went right and 3 people are dead, 7 people are in the hospital? That's not right. So I have hope today, Veronica, because of you. I have hope because we cannot let you down. We cannot let you down, LeBron.
Good evening. I think one of the things that we have at Riverview that's special is our ability with our DSOs, our district safety officers, is this relationship. Like Dr. Davis said, our DSOs know about stuff before it happens, and that kind of gets us in a position to prevent it from happening. Another thing that we have in place is we have 5 St. Louis County police officers that service at roads. We have 1 at the high school, 1 at each middle school, and 2 that float the elementary schools. But our biggest piece is that relationship. And without relationships and students like Precious, we wouldn't know, and we would constantly be caught off guard. But because of those relationships that our district established, or our DSOs established, we're able to prevent some things. But another thing we do offer is our district is big on restorative practice. And so now we're able to, instead of suspending a kid for 10 days, we're able to go get them to a restorative counselor. And that counselor says, because what was happening is you get caught with drugs and you go home for 10 days and smoke some more drugs. And so now what we're doing is, why are you smoking these drugs? What help do you need from us? And I think it takes a community effort, not just the school, not just parents, not just the student, but us as a community as a whole to fix our problems.
I heard Dr. Davis say how long he's been doing this work. This is your 46th. So I've seen a lot. Before I speak, I want to say to Mr. Dickerson, as the new superintendent, the current superintendent, Riverview Gardens, I am so sorry. So sorry for your loss. I know that does not help, but I want to say that to you. I'm serving 2 roles here today. One is the superintendent of Riverview Gardens School District, former superintendent of University City. And I say that to say that when you get a phone call from a district where you work, that your grandson has been shot leaving school, I know the hurt that you feel. I could not protect my grandson, who meant the world to me. So I understand the need for school safety. Mr. Porter spoke about the things we have in place. I think Veronica and Precious and young people have hit on mental health. PTSD is real. And it's real for our students and it's real for our staff. We live in a world of uncertainty. You know, when I was coming up in the 50s, my mother could send me to school and know I was going to get home safely and know that my community was going to support me when I got home. That no longer exists. When you send your child to school each day, you don't know what's going to happen. But let me say to you that there's no educator that I know who goes to school every day and says, I hope somebody shoots our building. I hope that something happens on the way home. That's not what we're about. And so because in Riverview Gardens, we strongly believe in mental health, we have 3 restorative justice classrooms and restorative rooms at our high school. We have 3 at both of our middle schools. And we have 9 people who that's their whole job, is to talk about restorative practices. We've done circles with parents because we've had some parents who've come in wanting to fight children. We've had some parents who have come in saying they're going to shoot us and everybody else. And so it's not just a school district issue. It's a community-wide issue. We recently received, which is great for us, in the district, we recently received last week notice from the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, a 5-year grant, $350,000 a year to solely focus on mental health. Mental health. We're one of 3 districts in the state of Missouri. Kinnick is one, Kansas City Public Schools, and Riverview Gardens. And we will be able to hire more social workers, more counselors, more interventionalists to really focus on mental health. We are also opening at our high school a site-based health center that is not only going to be open to our faculty and students, but members of our community. This grant too will help us offer support services to our community. And I don't know how much you, oh, my time is up.
Good evening. My name is Norman Campbell, and I am the Safety and Security Director for Norman School District. Also a 28-year veteran of the police department and previous police chief. So I just want to say, first of all, Veronica, sweetheart, that was moving. I mean, what you said, your passion, your research that you did is inspiring. So I thank you very much for giving me hope tonight. Because sometimes I leave work seeing what I see on a daily basis, and you have to take in mind that I was a police officer for 28 years, and I leave that school and I'm depressed sometimes from what I see. So when I see a young lady like yourself, that gives me hope and gives me the inspiration to come back to work tomorrow. So some of the things that we have in place at Normandy, we have several mechanisms to help with safety and security. But Dr. Davis hit the nail on the head when he said relationships. It is all about relationships. And one of the great things about the Normandy School District is that we're generational there. We have a lot of families that have come through, grandparents, parents, and now their children are there. So we know these families very well. I'm a Normandy student myself. So a lot of things that we get from the students. When I was on the police department, we solved a lot of crimes just from relationships. People come to us and because they know you and they trust you, then they're willing to give you that information that you need and confide in you. Not just about crimes, but even tell you what's going on in their own homes that maybe you can help with. And I know now that law enforcement and criminal justice is not about locking up people. It's about getting to the root causes, like this young brother said. It is about getting to the root cause of why you're actually smoking this weed, why you're committing this crime, why you're out after dark, who's watching you after curfew and things of that nature. So we have several mechanisms in place that is supposed to be, help with curtailing all of the crime and mischievous behavior that we're experiencing in our schools.
I just want to add one or two things. Our schools are underfunded. Our school districts are underfunded. Our communities are underfunded and under-resourced. This has been happening for decades. This is on purpose. These are policy decisions. These are policy decisions that start at the federal government. Congresswoman Bush and I work on the federal budget every year. And we see the money that goes to our military versus the money that goes to our schools. And a phenomenal poet once said, we have money for wars, but can't feed the poor. So the federal government has the power of the purse to invest in trauma, to invest in communities, to invest in school districts, to invest in schools. The federal government historically has chosen not to do that. Your voice and the voice of everyone in this room and the organizing power of everyone in this room and across the state of Missouri has to be leveraged to move our colleagues in the direction they need to go to make sure the money comes where it needs to come. This is historical neglect by design. Where are the jobs? Where are the workforce development programs? Where are they? Where are the school psychologists trained in trauma-informed practices in our schools? Educators work miracles every day with limited resources. Imagine if we gave them what they need to unlock the unlimited potential of our kids. Our kids should be able to receive everything they need, period, point blank. You want to do dance, we got a dance program. You want to do sports, we got a sports program. You want to do the arts, we got that. You want theater, we got that. You want AP, we got that. Our kids are our most precious resource. If we don't invest in them, we don't have a country. We don't have a society and we don't have humanity. Invest in our children, invest in our schools.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm gonna start off with a question. It was left anonymously, but I have seen this question over and over again. When I worked in state legislatures, I've seen this question. Why couldn't we give eligible teachers and staff guns?
Can I start with that?
Please do.
As a police officer, I've been trained to use that firearm. I know how to carry it in a uniform like Chief does, and I know how to carry it off duty. Firearms is not the answer to our problem. Even as a police officer, I am not a fan of guns. They're not the answer. When bullets start flying, the last thing you need is bullets flying back the other way from untrained people. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I was gonna say absolutely not. I think that's probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard, period. Teachers are meant, I was a math teacher, I wanna teach math, I wanna hold a gun. I wanna make sure my children know calculus well, right? And I think what's important is, I've heard it said, and I believe it, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And what we have to have are supports for people to make sure that teachers can show up and do the work they do. Congressman, you nailed it when you said that the federal government has the power to change this. If we can write a check for $2 trillion and send money to every community in this country, you tell me we can't educate every child well? Like, there's no reason for Black children underperforming in the ways they do. There's nothing wrong with Black children's heads. What's wrong is the dream that we don't put in our schools to make sure our children get quality. And I get so upset when I think about how we have a divided system. And I'm glad that both of you are here because you are closer to the decision makers. We've got to fund public education so teachers get paid well, so teachers get the support that they need, so they can show up to have the best relationship they can have with students. There was nothing more rewarding for me as a teacher than to see my children grow when I was teaching them math, right? Because I knew they knew it. I know math, they're gonna know when I'm done, and give me the room to do that. And I think that's what has to happen. Put a gun in the teacher's hand. That is a recipe for disaster. And I wanna say it loud and clear so that we don't even think about going down that road to do that.
Let me add, I can say this with assurance that if that came across the desk for Congressman Bowman or for me, not only would we oppose it, but we would fight like heck against it. There is absolutely no way that we would support that. And I say this, if we cannot make sure that our teachers are paid a livable wage, or even better than a livable wage because of the work that they're doing, if we won't even do that, if we won't make sure that teachers are able to, that they don't have to take time off to work on their curriculum, that they don't have to take the time that they're supposed to be with their family to do the work, right, and working part-time jobs and all of this, and then we have the nerve, folks have the nerve to say to give them a gun to protect. Their job is not to protect, to make sure those teachers put themselves in harm's way. The other day, we thank them for saving our babies, but that's not their job. They didn't sign up to be the shield, nor did they sign up to be the protector in that way. They're protecting the mind. They're making sure that information is going in well and that it's received in a comprehensive way. That's the job. And I think about it, and I'll finish here. I taught early childhood taught it for about 6 years and then went into administration for the last few. So 10 years I worked in early childhood. And when I think about the work that we had to do when we were saving lives, it was because I had to get on the floor to do the Heimlich maneuver to get pop out of somebody's hot dog. Like, that was the extent of the work of saving the life that I needed to do. Catching somebody sliding across the parking lot, because they ran and they slid. But our teachers, when you cannot afford to take care of your own family, but you are doing the work to take care of everybody else's, how dare we as a society not make sure that that's done and then have the nerve to tell them to protect with guns.
This question has come up. This question comes up all the time as school district policymakers, we look to the experts. I've never heard a law enforcement official say that that was even remotely a good idea. What I question is if someone comes and says, I wholeheartedly 100% support law enforcement, but I'm not gonna listen to them on this issue. Look at the hypocrisy there. I mean, I am so grateful for our St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and their response on Monday. It was unflinching, it was heroic, and we knew they'd do that for us because we've been practicing with them. And we followed those instructions. So it's important in this to listen to the experts. We need to rely on them. And, you know, there's a lot of always Monday morning quarterbacking, and some of it's just crazy. And we need to take a step back and do what we know is the right thing to do.
I think, you know, we're having a conversation right now because of guns. And one of the things that I have seen since Monday, I do not understand how you're gonna take the problem and try to sell it as a solution. I really, really wish that as a society and as a world, we could get to a place where we recognize that violence is not the answer. Like, you think that we're gonna tell kids, you know, hey, stay safe, stay away from guns, don't do this. And then they're gonna walk into their school buildings and see their educators. That wasn't the case on Monday, but for so many kids, this is where I get my meal. This is where my safe place where I can express myself. And you think that they deserve to walk into their school buildings and to see their educator with a gun. And we're trying to have conversations about trauma. That's traumatizing for the teacher. That's traumatizing for the kid. If that's an extremely dangerous mentality, we really have to get to a place as a world and a society that we see that guns are the problem and not the solution. The solution is some of the preventative measures and the things that we're talking about. But I really don't want to hear, and I know that I don't know the space that that question came from, but it's a dangerous question because it totally ignores, like if you're hearing gunshots every night, you think you want to walk into your school building and you seeing people walking around carrying guns? I don't even need the full time. We just really have to get away from this mindset. And when it comes to children, it comes to safety, get back to a place where we're thinking about how can we love the children more? How can we support them more? How can we give them more resources? Guns are not that. Come on.
When I was in college, there wasn't a course on the use of guns in school. It was about building relationships. It was about building the future. And education has evolved. We now do the social emotional, we feed, we clothe. Guns is not a part of that. Bullets don't have a knowledge of who they're shooting at. When first responders respond, they come in looking for an intruder. They don't know a teacher or a principal from any intruder. And if you give teachers a gun, I don't think any of them would take it, so let me say that. But if you offer them a gun to use, every time there's a fear, every time there's probably a threat, which we're all getting right now, that person switches into a different mindset. And there will be more students injured, more teachers injured, should that ever happen. But I say to you, there are some states who vote annually on whether or not teachers should have guns. I've worked in one.
All right, we've got time. Did anyone else want to answer that?
My answer is simple, no. I think teachers have enough jobs. Teachers are already teachers, they're already counselors, they're already confidants, they're already friends. I think to put a gun in their hand just takes the humanity out of this education.
All right, so we have one more question. Or have time for about one more question, but we do get to make our answers pretty short on this one because we're running a little late. Youth violence. What is it that the kids can do to express themselves? Everything costs, gym, skating, basketball. There are more twerk fests and expressions of art. You get more support for sports oh, I'm sorry, more support for sports, the being smarter, good decision makers. What do we do to allow our kids to get a safe place to express themselves physically and emotionally?
That's what Central was.
Spoken word. Spoken word is an opportunity for students who normally don't speak out, who are introverts, who are hurting, to have the opportunity to have their voice heard, to take the mask off and shed some of what they've been holding inside. We don't have enough of that spirit. There's poetry slams. I'm a strong proponent that every school should have a spoken word class where kids can just go in and be who they are, be accepted for who they are, and be allowed to put it all out there on the table, the profanity, all of it, and not be criticized or judged. We have to unleash the hurt at some point in time.
Absolutely. And I want to follow that up with, how do we support getting these kind of creative expression programs in the schools? If anybody else wants to take this question.
I definitely was about to say what Veronica said. That's exactly what Central was. Parents and family, I am asking that this is a little bit of faith in me. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he grows, he will not depart from it. I believe that it takes a village to raise one. And I believe that in today's time, we're losing community, we're losing unity, we're losing the family, we're losing the love within our communities. And because of that, we have a brokenness in our schools. We have a brokenness in our children. We talk about freedom in schools. It's exactly what Century was. I'm a singer, so if you don't mind, I was listening to this song on Monday morning before our school was shot up by an alumni. This song says, I'm in his safety, dwell in his safety, the safety of the Lord. Nothing can stop me, nothing can show up block me. The safety of the Lord. And if you believe that you're in the safety of the Lord, and I don't mean to start talking about religion, but if you believe that you're in the safety of the Lord, then you know that he's a protector. Then you know that he's a divine healer. Then you know that he's a restorer. And I believe that when you know that God is the true and living God who sits high and looks low, and he reigns for the just as well as the unjust, and he is the provider. He is Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Rapha. He is omnipotent and he is omniscient. I don't mean to be a pastor only, but that's just the truth. When you are free and know that God is still alive and that he's not dead, then you know that you are in the safety of the Lord.
Amen, my brother. Yeah, preach. And I'll segue, I'm not gonna preach, but I'll segue, because you spoke about the father. And I think that's what's missing in our communities, our Black fathers. And Black men have to step up and take responsibility for our Black children, especially our Black boys. You know, I've heard it said so many times about how Black boys are always with their pants hanging down, having these issues. And I go back to my brother Jamal's, what he said a minute ago. Ask the question, why? Like, why do children show up this way? And being, you know, a young Black man growing up without my dad, it was traumatic all my life. And I vowed that I would be there for my son 100% of the time, and I have been. And let me tell you that boys need their fathers, and men do too. And we gotta raise up a community where our Black men in particular take responsibility for our community. And when you speak about father, I think about how important it is. We started after President Obama left office, he left MBK as a part of his legacy. And we have a My Brother's Keeper and My Sister's Keeper initiative going on in Ferguson, Florida. And we have to bring people from the community into our schools to build community. So you asked the question about youth violence and giving them a safe space, I think we have to ask the question why they show up in the ways that they do by giving them the support that they need at home. And I think men have to take that responsibility first.
Just wanted to say something real quick. If we're gonna, one thing that we're doing, and I like the African proverb. So in other words, I think we need to get to back to the African concept. A lot of our kids don't know anything about their history. And in order for us to change, we have to learn where you come from in order to know where you're going. So we need to we need to go back to teaching our kids African-centered history. And I think that'll make a big difference in our young people.
We've talked a lot about how important it is to listen to the students. Them and listen, I think we've seen some examples of how important that is and how powerful it can be.
Yeah, I was gonna echo Matt. I know the question was about safety, but I think, and I experience it all the time, and I'm not even taking 18, I just turned 27 last week, but sometimes we want young people in the room, but we just want them to be seen and not heard. And so I think that one of the things, the reason why I asked Raekwon to come up here and sit next to me, the reason why I always, I think as a board, the reason why we decided to have student representations is, you know, proximity to power is not power. And you can't teach kids to be quiet, to keep your thoughts to yourself. You can't police their tones, tell them what emotions they can experience, and then be surprised when you get certain outbursts, or when you get nothing, when you get silent. If you want them to be at the table, they have to be at the table. They need to really be not just present, but in positions of power. And we also know, you know, talking about expression, too often in households, we hear what happens in this house stays in this house. And then we get surprised when they're not talking to the therapist, or when they're not talking to the teacher, or when they don't want to give their opinions of what's going on, but we're training them to be quiet. And then we wonder why they have outbursts and where the anger comes. So for me, one of the things that I always try to do, and I think all of us as individuals, if you are in a room, if you are in a space and you notice that there's a person who is young, do what you can to go to them. Raekwon, how you doing today? How was your experience today? You want to tag along with me to this meeting? Do you want to come up here with me and sit on the stage? Let me know when you want to talk. I will give you the mic. You need to do whatever you can to be empowering people to come after you. Because like Cori was saying earlier, there's gonna be no one to pass the baton to. Some of us, I know we don't like to talk about some of us safeguard power. Some of us want to be the only voice present, and we can't do that. We can't continue that. We see that on the state level, what they do to us, but sometimes in our communities, we do that to each other, and we especially do it to people who are young.
Did anyone else want to provide an answer? All right. Well, that concludes our administrator panel. We want to thank all of you so much. We're going to have, and I want to everybody give our administrators a round of applause, please. We're going to have 3 more questions that are just for our Congressman Bowman and Congresswoman Bush. All right. All right. This first question is from Carlton Stock. Carlton, are you here? Oh, would you like to stand? No, not at all. I'll ask it for you. You're fine. How do we change the inadequate gun laws in Missouri? People are losing their lives.
So I'll take that. Well, one thing is we we have to make sure that we are doing the work to get the people into the seats that are the ones that support the policies that we support. So we have so many people running, and I can't, I'm in my official capacity, so I'm not speaking about endorsing any particular candidate. What I am saying is, we have people in this state who are running for office right now, gun policy, who believe what we believe as far as gun reform. And then we have some folks who are fighting against that. In Congress, back in July, we passed the ban on assault rifles, on assault weapons. We did that in the US House. But we have folks in the Senate that don't believe the same thing that we believe. But here in Missouri, we have a bunch of folks that don't want to see that happen. Who are we allowing to take these seats? It's not okay enough to say, well, I don't want that to happen. We gotta do something, when the something has to be making sure that we're turning out the vote for those people who have our interests. And so we have some of those folk here, like Peter Meredith, I think Doug left, but Peter, would you stand up for a moment? When you talk about an advocate, if you are not on Peter Meredith's Facebook page, if you want to know what's happening in Missouri politics, if you want to know what's happening in Jeff City, and you want the detail, you will get detailed information. He will tell you exactly what just happened on the floor and beyond. This Peter and those that Peter rocks with, those are the folks that are the ones that are pushing to make sure that we get the gun legislation passed that we need passed, but it is nowhere near, we're nowhere near that because we don't have the support in the state house. How do we get the support in the state house? We need folks like Peter. We need to get them elected. I didn't say I'm voting for Peter. I can't say that because I'm my official capacity, but folks that believe like Peter does is how I would vote. All right.
Right, check, yeah. So I'll just add really quickly, there's a national movement focused on this issue. There are a couple of organizations, you may have heard of them. Moms Demand Action is one.
Yes.
March for Our Lives is another. Those are two organizations you want to plug into. And it's really important for this to be a national movement because to Congresswoman Bush's point, the House of Representatives continues to pass, especially when Democrats are in charge, continues to pass common sense gun reform that doesn't move in the Senate. In order for it to move in the Senate, we need to get new senators in the Senate. In order to get new senators in the Senate, this needs to be a national movement that grows even bigger than what it currently is. So HR 8, for example, is a piece of legislation that we passed over a year ago in the House that has not moved in the Senate. So at the federal level, it's really important for what happens in Missouri to become part of a bigger national movement to help us get people into the Senate that we need to get into the Senate that support the legislation that we all want. And I believe they're referred to as gun sense candidates. Gun sense candidates, yeah. So you could look up different candidates who support the legislation that we're talking about, and they're referred to as gun sense candidates. And you want to support the gun sense candidates to pass the kind of legislation that we're referring to at every level of government, not just federal, but state and local as well.
How will you continue to empower our youth to uniform policies like gun safety at the federal level?
So one program that we have through our congressional office, a program called Congress in Your Classroom. Congress, and we have some of our folk in here. Stand up, you all play, Congress in Classroom, these are some of our students. Thank you all. And so with Congress in Your Classroom, our students they'll get to work in different areas of, just the legislative process. We've already started that work with them, but that is one way that our youth can be empowered is because we are opening the door saying, hey, you want to work on policy? We're putting you on the policy team. We're putting you on the communications team. We're putting you on the operations team. whichever area they want to be in. And then once they're in that area, let me just say, what will happen by the end of this cohort is they are putting together their own, authoring their own piece of legislation that I will introduce later on this year. And the one thing, when we surveyed our students, crime came up to be the number one thing that they wanted to work on. And when we had our session just a week and a half ago, you all. Last Monday, it was on, we talked about bullying, but we also talked about school safety. And that was part of this, town hall was about, they were going to talk about bullying and school safety. And then we had the tragedy happen on Monday. So we tried to merge the two. But that is one way, because the thing is, when we have the conversation, first of all, there has to be exposure. We gotta expose our youth to this process. They have to know what this looks like. And the door has to be wide open to those that wanna know. And not only that, the door has to be wide open to those who wanna know and those who don't wanna know. Because so it's up to them to then tell their friends, hey, you should come. It's up to them, we will empower them, but we're looking to them to also say, hey, I know you don't wanna hear about this, but let me tell you about this, because our youth can speak to other youth in a way that we can't. We can hit certain things, but we will never be able to affect, but they will be able to. So we empower them to empower each other. And then they also speak back to us and they empower us to do better. It works both ways.
Yeah, so we're about to start a youth caucus in Congress. It's crazy to think that a youth caucus doesn't currently exist. That's kind of crazy when you think about it, because there are literally hundreds of caucuses in Congress, no youth caucus. We're about to start that for the next Congress, which is going to be incredible. And that's going to give us a platform and an opportunity to organize youth organizations across the country under one umbrella so that we can build and strengthen this movement that we're all a part of. So that's something that's going to be happening in Congress this year coming forward. What happened tonight is also an example of empowering youth. Very, very rarely do you go to town halls and you see town halls begin with a youth panel. So that's an example of leadership by Congresswoman Bush and leadership. I also want to mention, we were talking earlier on the ride over about how powerful we are in our trauma response. So when Mike Brown was killed, the entire St. Louis state country stood up. And the Black Lives Matter movement was powerful. It was powerful for a sustained period of time, and then it fizzled out for a minute, and then it came back. When George Floyd was killed, we saw the country and the world stand up. That's our trauma response. What happens with that rage, though, it fizzles out over a while because you can't keep that energy going. What's important for us is to harness that rage in a moment like this so that we can be really strategic and poignant and keeping it sustained and building political power at every level of government, and especially on the federal level. So not just responding in our trauma, but that sustained energy we need for the lifespan. Because guess what? This is a fight for the rest of our lives. We're not gonna fight, win policy, and then go to sleep. No, because what happens is when you win policy, other people are gonna try to fight and take it back. We can't let them take it back. So this is a fight for the rest of our lives. And the last thing I'll say is the civil rights movement, the suffrage movement, the abolitionist movement, these were all movements led by young people. There wouldn't have been no Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act if young people didn't lead that movement. So I just want to continue to uplift your voice and your power.
Absolutely. All right, so we have one more question.
If there's one area of gun violence prevention policy that seems like you are closest on agreement with your opposition, what would it be?
We just passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and there are a lot of resources there for mental health. So I was happy to see that is a space where there's overlap. my problem with that is, and I know the Congresswoman will also respond to this, is we're investing in mental health as we should, but we're still not identifying like guns is the problem. Too many guns is the problem. We have more guns in the country than people. Like that's crazy, right? So, you know, what we're pushing and what we're continuing to push is a ban on assault rifles. The other party isn't really on the same page with us as that. And that's why I'm organizing, getting the right people in the office and so on.
So I don't know what my opposition, I don't know. I haven't seen the stance. So I'll just say what I know that I stand for. I don't know if the person has a website, so maybe it's there. But, you know, for me, I supported the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that Congressman Bowman was just speaking of. You know, we supported the ban on assault rifles. We support the money going into community violence intervention and violence interruption. The mental health services, all of we believe that there has to be common sense gun laws, and Missouri does not have that. Missouri has some of the loosest gun laws in the country, and we have some of the loosest gun laws, but we also have some of the highest death rates per capita, you know, across the country. Now, I'm not talking about St. Louis, I'm talking about Missouri. So I support our state representatives in the St. Louis area who have been working hard to make sure that that their voices are being heard. It's just their voices aren't loud enough because it's not enough of them. But this is only the beginning. So if we do the work, maybe we can start flipping some of these. Okay. Also, I'll say, I was recently in, oh my gosh, I was in Mexico and Honduras, Guatemala, Colombia. I've been to all of them, so I'll just, yes, yeah, you were in Honduras with me. But recently when I was in Colombia, I kept hearing, and some of that in Mexico, we were talking with the heads of state. And what they said to me, actually in Colombia, I believe it was, what he said to me, the Colombian president, he said, while you're talking to me about drugs, you all haven't fixed your drug problem in your country. And he said, while you're talking to me about drugs, yes, we have a problem of violence, of gun violence. And he said, it's along this path. We understand that. And then when I look at the murder rates across the world, yes, we have cities who are at the top of that murder rate list. But St. Louis is always at the top of that list. Yes. I am in a different country. And he tossed that out in my face in front of a room full of people that around the world, our state is known for this. But instead of us tightening up the laws, we loosen them even more. When we have our students here crying out, saying, we don't want this, like we're trying to save our lives, we don't want this. Our state legislature has to listen. They should listen. I don't understand dollars over death. I don't understand that. I'm going to get my dollars, so I'm cool with the death that comes with as long as I get my dollars. Like, I don't understand that. And when our babies have to get up and cry in front of a room, begging for their lives and not understanding why they are in a position to where now they don't feel safe at the school where they felt safe. When we stood out there on that parking lot of that Schnucks the other day on Monday, when we stood there, we had students crying, telling us, I don't want to go back. They said CVPA was a place where you could express yourself and where it was like fun and they felt safe and it was just like community. And they said, but now I don't feel that I don't want to go back. Those are our students. Where do they go? And they are the ones that get to make that decision because it's up to the legislators. It's up to our governor, we have the representative back there. It's up to those who are in elected office to make the decisions. What school is open? What school isn't open? Who goes where? And how safe it is. And it's up to us to do better. And so it sickens me that not only are we fighting this fight to stay alive in so many different ways in this city, in this community, but also that our children have a place where they have to go. They have to do schooling. They have to. They have to. And we can't keep them safe. So I am going to implore every one of our that's in our state legislature that have made the decision that they do not want to tighten up on our gun laws. I am asking that you come and speak that to our youth. Come and meet with them in their faces and tell them that you will not tighten up, and tell them why. And then listen to them, let them tell you why they need it. Because this is not just about us. We're trying to save their lives, but their lives is part of a legacy. It's the legacy of St. Louis. So it's not just for them. It's for them and their children's children, and we owe that to them. All right. Let me just say thank you all for coming. Thank you all for staying. This town hall needed to happen because number one, we needed to deal with the issues we brought. And I hope that those of you that were able to connect with James Dickerson, his child was 10 years old. She took her life. We need to, that has to be helped. Because also the thing is this, it's not just his child. There are other children that may be thinking the same thing.
Fight for our families.
We fight.
Fight for our
Yes.
families. Nobody talked about parents up there. All the whole time, I tried to hold it and I waited.
Yeah.
Nobody talked about investing in our families. I talked to Dr. Davis at the last meeting, and I asked him about when they're gonna have parental inclusion.
Well, that's what this is, because we have, yes, we have resources. Yes, we are, right, exactly. And that's why we have the resources out there for families, resources out there. Those tables are all lined up.
By themselves, okay?
That's exactly, you're right.
You all put money in our kids, but you leave us by ourselves. We have no authority. We are not included in the schools. And I've been fighting because my son goes to McClure High School. I got a message today about unsafe situations today. Every day, fighting. Everything going on in that building. And like I said, we're not allowed, they're able to access that campus and we can't even come through the doors. So when you start investing money and making plans, please tell these superintendents to construct something that includes us as parents, not just they have thought exchanges, they assess us, get our thoughts, but not include us.
I think some of them may still be here. Some of them may still be here to hear you.
I'm saying you, as our Congresswoman, you are there with several dollars when y'all sitting at the table and they're sitting at the table. I tried to be peaceful, but I'm tired of you all talking about just saving our kids, save us. Save our family.
Well, actually, somebody did speak about the family up here because she talked about making sure that the parents have help as well. She did. Let me stop you. She did. She said that she wants to make sure that mental health services are for both. But yes, no, the superintendents can. Absolutely. We can make sure. But that's why we have the superintendents up here, and some of them may still be in the room. So we can absolutely, that's why they're here, so that they can hear from.
I'm getting emails every day, Congresswoman, every day about my son's school, every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's guns, whether it's fighting, 7-8 fights a day.
And that's why we, yes.
So
please include us. Absolutely.
We don't have word inclusion. That's the secret. Include us parents, not just you all, the community, people around here that have titles, include us.
Yes.
And you have your answer.
Okay, this is the last, because we're supposed to be out of here.
I'm so sorry, but I got to as well, and I did ask my question during the RFP, did not get answered. My question had to do with implementation, and I will say this, thank you, Congresswoman Bush, for bringing everybody to the table. It's very much so, not just the federal, not just the state, not just the local, but we are talking about the superintendents. We're talking about parents. Parents came to Ferguson Florissant School District, and we talked about the restructuring of the system. We had parents there buku every day faithfully. Do you know the council sat the board, the school board sat there? First of all, the community never got to be able to sit at the table and have an option. We were given the options of redistricting, and then when we overwhelmingly our parents came out. They decided to do what they wanted to do. Adams is a face. Adams came from out of town. He came in here and he implemented the programs. When we talk about Hope for Boys, that was something from Dr. McCoy. Dr. McCoy implemented that. That was not Adams. So I'm just saying, when we talk about bringing people to the table, when we talk about apologizing for Mr. Dickerson's loss, I want to know, what did you do when you had the capacity, the power to be able to make the change in the system so that none of these kids ever have to go through it again? I don't want to hear the apologies. I want to hear what you can do in the seat. And I'm not talking about you, Congressman Bush. I'm talking about everybody else that is sitting there, superintendents, principals. We're talking about Riverview School District, everybody that was up there. What are you doing to put in place? And how do we implement the things that the community says? Because we can take all of these suggestions all day long, but if we're not prioritizing and implementing them in our local area, then all that voice is just a voice. It's just a voice. It's just a voice. And our community has had too much of an impact at this point.
Yeah,
So I appreciate everybody for coming out, but at the same time, I want to know specifics.
Right.
From each one of them people up there that got power, what you gonna do what did you take collectively around this?
So,
and how are you going to implement it? That's what.
so Fran, I hear you. So what we said a couple times already is that if you turned in a question, we are going to get your question answered and then get that question back to you, because we couldn't get to all the questions. There was no way we could get to all the questions. So it's not that your question is not gonna go answered. It's just that, that we weren't able to get to all the questions. So we can absolutely reach out. We can send that question to, if you want it to each one, if you didn't specify, we can get that question
It
to
ain't
them.
about me, I'm talking about.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you said you turned in a question, so we can make sure that those questions get answered. And also, if that person is still here, let's utilize this time to talk directly to him. I don't know if he's still here, but let's utilize the space to.
Dr. Davis.
Who she?
Dr. Davis is our.
Looked you dead in your face and said no. Is there gonna be an option that is the community